Great, my name's S. Rob, and I'd like to talk about something. I had a bit of criticism recently from somebody. You do get this sometime when you write books on occultism. You get the normal sort of really, really bad insults, like you can't write and all this. Look, I'm a professional author, we can all write. We're all talented. That's how it works. To make it worse, I'm an author of non-fiction, it means I have to learn and produce things all the time. Right, so you have to be clever to do that. It doesn't really work to say that you're not clever or you're not doing it very well. I've wrote 634 books, and almost all of them are non-fiction occultism. I know this stuff and do this stuff easily. But how do you deal with these people? Because really, what it was about, what the reason for the attack was because of occultism. Because I do occultism, and you get these people. I think Tony Dockshield called them the back and front palmers. And some of these people are magicians, a lot of them are magicians, but the magicians that don't believe in lying. Now, that's the problem. See, I'm an occultist. I'm not classing I was a magician. I do sometimes use tricks within rituals as special effects. There is a special effect, like you'd use a candle and something like that. I've done that before. And I think that's a good idea. It gives a unique effect, and it works on your own, because a lot of these special effects type things really only work if you've got a lot of people, where a magic trick works even if you're just on your own. It helps to add something to it. Haven't done that for a long time, but I used to do that. But I said I used to call them back and front palmers, because these are performing stage magicians that don't believe in lying. See, the trouble is with this, and I'm talking to someone who watches these people, the ones that do lie are better. That's the problem, you see, is it because it doesn't really work. The ones that do lie are better magicians. They're far better, It's just the way it works, because the idea is that you can't ever claim to have paranormal or psychic powers. So they do that, telling people this is perfectly normal, natural methods, and that's it. But it bores people. The ones that actually tell people that they are psychic or will lead people to believe they're psychic are actually better. Now, people would say that I should be offended by this, as an actual occultist. But I'm not, because these guys always dress the same way. They dress up in period dress. And all I'm going to say is, if you're the sort of person that can see a person dressed up as a Victorian character from a Hammer horror movie, and when he says he's psychic and does all these things, and you take it seriously, then you're an idiot, because it's a character he's playing. They're playing characters, is what they're doing, these guys, and they do a good job. But you see, it's got psychologically and philosophy, it makes sense, because a magician fools you. He's there to fool you. So a magician that doesn't fool you, that fools you, but tells you that it's all trickery, isn't really fooling you. He's fighting against himself. He's not marching all in the same direction. However, a magician that will lie to you is marching in the right direction. And so, because he's marching everything in the same way, is more entertaining and is better than the other ones, Because I've seen a lot of these guys. I think I've had a run-in with this guy a long time ago, actually. I think it was when I used to work on a run, and it's just this same thing, Because I hate to say this, you see. I was a magician. I actually was a children's entertainer when I left school. And what I can say is this is what I know about it, is basically a lot of these guys, they lose the track of it. See, in magic, you can get people who are famous within magic and aren't outside. And a lot of these people aren't really much of anybody. But in magic, people know who they are. This guy walks down the street, no one's going to know who he is. I'm not going to mention his name because there's other ones, But they're not going to, no one's going to know who the hell he is, because that's how it works. We're living in an age where there's plenty of media and stuff like this, and they just don't notice them. They just don't, but they don't get it. They don't get that that's not really famous, because it's not the same thing, you see, to them if someone's known within plumbing circles. Because I can guarantee you, if you search the internet, you'll find one guy who is huge in plumbing. He might have written books on plumbing, he might be doing videos on plumbing, but he will be the number one plumbing guy. There's probably a guy who does the plumbing conventions, and he's always talking about the new materials they're using and the new plumbing pipes and stuff like this, and it'll be huge. Same as like computer geek guys, I'm not going to mention the name. It's at least one computer guy works as an Imagineer, and he goes around all these huge, big computer game places, and everybody knows him. He's famous. Let's be honest, this guy is famous within computer game circles. Anyone who's making a computer game or things like this know who this guy are. If you work in there, you know who he is. So he's achieved fame. I don't think he thinks of it as fame, but it is fame. And that's what you're talking about. They don't realize that that's what it actually is. It's the same as the guy who's selling the plumbing materials and stuff like this. It's no different. It's the same, You may wonder how you deal with these people. People tell you just to block them. Don't do that. Okay? Get the answers online. Don't just block them. What you do is this: give it some thought and think of the perfect statement you want to say that will really make them really angry. Say, the statement I said was that, look, I write non-fiction. I write 364 books on non-fiction. I have to therefore take this information, continue to learn things, and produce more information and more books. And that means that I am cleverer than you are. And and some other insults I put in. And then what you do then is you block them so they can't reply. See, that's what you do. You say something to really make them angry, and then you make it so they can't reply to you, because that's the thing, they can't reply. Because normally these people, they just want to wear you down. That's all it is. Just want to keep going with stuff. Because the thing is, even the most basic of ideas, if you have to explain to someone who's a complete idiot, which they normally are, then it gets tricky, because you're trying to explain to someone who's a moron. It actually, there's a lot in everything. It's a bit like mathematics. You look at the simplest of mathematics, you think, it's great, it's fabulous. You can teach it to people. I know a lot of people think mathematics is difficult, but you can't teach it, and it's a good subject to learn. But the thing is, you learn it. But if you want to know all of how it was developed and how it happened and all the theory behind it, it becomes very, very complicated, Like calculus. You learn a little bit of calculus. It's good if you can memorize some of it. If you can't, it gets very difficult to do the advanced stuff. Like in math degrees and stuff like this, you need to memorize some of that calculus. At least you did in applied mathematics when I studied maths anyway, and or some mathematics. But the thing is, you see, is that with that is that once you've got that, it's there. But if you actually wanted to look behind it and do an in-depth of it, you'd find massive complexity. People still do PhDs in calculus. That's right, because calculus, you think, well, we've solved that now, but people still do PhDs in calculus in pure mathematics, producing new calculus and new things and taking it further. You're right, and that's what they do. Same as like computational mathematics and stuff like that, But that's the thing that happens with these people, it's because a lot of this is based on the Houdini thing, see. Because these people think they know about Houdini, and I don't really know. See, my brother was an escape artist when he was younger. That's what he did for a living. He did it when he was younger. When he left school, he was an escape artist. He was an escapologist. But you think he had a series of mentors that he had. And there was someone like Nick Johnson was one of his mentors. David Duval was, and Norman Bigelow. And these were people who we communicated with by letter mostly. Or something. There was another one as well. What was the other one? And he was actually one of the first bizarrest thing in a way. It wasn't the guy who created it, but he was in one of the earlier ones though. And he was, was Ian McCall was another guy anyway. But they used to communicate by letter. All these people. Now, what they didn't realize about Houdini, people always think Houdini, and he attacked these seance people because he was a magician. He didn't believe in them. What they don't realize is it was because the reason he attacked them was because he believed in reincarnation. That was what Houdini believed in. He believed in reincarnation. See, the thing is that Norman Bigelow was taught by a guy who was taught by Hardin. Now, you might not know, but Hardin was Houdini's brother. And Houdini taught Hardin. Hardini taught this guy, and that guy taught Norman Bigelow, who was a very important escapologist, hugely important in the world, better known in the States than over here. Not really known at all over here, but he was a really important guy in escapology. For actually, in fact, all the people I've mentioned there were all very important in escapology. But like I said, and that was what it really was about. He believes in reincarnation. You see, so my brother obviously learned that information from Hardin, from Norman Bigelow, and that's what it was actually about. He was one of the first people to believe in reincarnation, because Buddhism and stuff like this believes in reincarnation. I don't think it was there in that bigger numbers yet. You obviously had some Chinese people and Indian people in America, but it hadn't really taken off. The whole idea of reincarnation hadn't taken off yet. But he believed in it. So, of course, in his view, how the hell could you possibly have people being raised from the dead, being communicated with, if they're being reincarnated? Which is a good point of view. Good point. I mean, the ancient Egyptians believed that the person split into various different parts. So even your soul would split. So it's quite easy to have one part that would be maybe in heaven or hell, and one part that's been reincarnated, and you can have that like that easily without any problem if you have the ancient Egyptian viewpoint. In fact, I believe that much of the time these things coexisting is a good way to think of it. You know, they coexist because they're about thought. If you can think about it and you can get other people to think about it, you can produce it. Maybe not every time, maybe not, but you can produce it. If you can think about it, you can produce it. That's really how occultism seems to work. It's a branch of psychology, you know. But it is amazing. They always seem to look upon things as, how do I put it, as a sort of like combative way. They really have to take a position against certain things. And it really just doesn't make them very interesting. It doesn't really at all, you know. Because mainstream magic, like these guys, like, I'm not talking about occult magic, but stage magic, performance magic, you know, there's not a lot of art there. There's very few of them are actually artists, most of them are entertainers. And that sounds like a good thing. And I like people who are entertainers, but there's a problem. Entertainment, entertainers type philosophy gets really, really dated really quickly. And it can get really, really tacky. But creativity doesn't. Art, it's only being an art form, or being artistic and being an art, doesn't really get tacky. Art doesn't get tacky, it just doesn't. But the entertainment thing can get tacky really, really soon, you know, and that's the problem, you know. I mean, in actual fact, I think probably the magicians who are uh, the best from an occult point of view to deal with are the bizarrists. Now, you won't know who these are unless you're part of me, you're part of magic. And the occultists who are reading, they won't know who they are. But they're basically a type of entertainment that came out of magic, out of stage magic. And they also came out of things like ghost tours and things like this. And their philosophy is different. They're trying to give you a story about it and also make it seem real, you know. Uh, it's just their philosophy is that they want to fool you completely. They don't want to just say that that this here isn't real magic or things like this. They want to do it completely. And you know, they wear different costumes and things like this to make themselves fit in with what they want to say. And they don't necessarily use the same sort of effects that other magicians use. They don't use those. You know, the big boxes with look like they've just fell off the back of a circus truck. They don't use them at all. You know, sometimes routines go on longer because it's not always about the magic. Sometimes they do things that don't have tricks in them at all. In fact, it would be fair to say they're a type of performance art, is what they are. You know, and I suppose one of the best ones was probably Tony Doc Shields. Like I said, I mentioned, I don't think he is much. He doesn't really converse with anybody anymore. He did a big thing a long time ago where he raised up a Loch Ness monster type thing. Of course, he tricked and he used trickery, but I don't think you get away with that now. The newspapers now would probably take it apart and would show it as being foolish, being a trick. Which actually, look, the guy's dressed with a big stovepipe hat on, right? And he's dressed up to make it look like he's some sort of old-timey magician, right? With a stovepipe hat, not dressed how we normally are. And he's doing these things. He's got these naked girls around doing this, because this stuff was done in the 70s. This was the summer of love, you know what I mean? When everybody could do anything, you know, and did. And then he raised it. You're not going to think, you know, really that you're going to be fooled. You know, if you're going to do this stuff, you just do it in what you're wearing. You know, you wouldn't do it in a costume, but he did do it in a costume because it's more theatrical. And these people are about theatre to a very large degree. So are you really being fooled, or are you just an idiot? Because of some things you can't explain too much. You know what I mean? If you're wearing something that makes them stand out and fit it, obviously as a characterization, then obviously, you know, it's not real, because it's a way of telling people it's not real without actually having to do it. You know what I'm saying? That's what I believe anyway. So, uh, and that's the way it works, isn't it? Really, but you know, that's what we call them, the back and front palmers. You won't know what that means unless you're a magician, but basically it means all these really pointless people that do all this like crappy magic, the sort of tacky stuff the public don't like, you know. Because a lot of magicians still like this stuff. They do. But the audience don't, because it's just, you know, I mean, you can get away with it if you're a comedy magician. If you're comedy, you can get away with a bit. But when I say comedy magician, I don't mean clever comedy magician. I mean the ones from the Benny Hill school, you know what I mean? You can get away with it. Then you can. But you see, you've got to show some self-awareness, because you have to therefore be like Jeffrey Durham did, who used to perform magic in Britain when he was dressed up as the Great Surprendo. He could use anything because Great Surprendo was a way of sending up magicians. magicians are sending up how tacky they are, which means you could use all this stuff. But most comedy magicians now, they don't. They use this stuff. They don't realize they have to dress tacky so they can send it up to use it. Because if you don't, which they don't, honestly, they don't really do that, then they wouldn't do that. Like I said, the guy that was giving me trouble, which is not the first time, of course. You know, you do tend to bang head with the same morons time and time again. You know, and what can I say? You know, he got himself down as a comedy magician. Things like that. They're actually funny, these guys. That's the thing. Because comedy means people are laughing. People actually laugh when he's doing his act. Don't think so. Don't think that one's going to happen. Is it really? He's not going to be doing that. It's not going to. But anyway. But, you know, you've got to send it up like he did when he was playing the Great Soprendo. You know, and he get away with anything because of that. But they don't do that. They don't send it up. They do it in all seriousness and say, really, a lot of this stuff is just too much, you know. I mean, I'm not always a big fan of magic, you know what I mean? Because a lot of the stuff which is mostly the best stuff is the stuff with boxes. Now, these big boxes. Sometimes they're called box jumpers. And you got your assistant in this box, and this box, and this box, and this box. And to be honest, that stuff really doesn't interest me that much. You know, it doesn't. It could have, they could put something else in it, but it doesn't really interest me. That's the stuff people are really paying the money for. The money for the equipment is that stuff, and it doesn't interest me that much because it's got no theatre in it. You know what I mean? When was the last time you went to a play and you saw something pointless big? Chekhov's gun. If you have a gun on the wall in the first act and the second act, somebody must be shot. Because that's theatre, right? They don't do that in plays. You don't have a pointless box line around somewhere. Somebody gets a load of spears put through and come out, and then they come out and they're okay, and that's it. And then you move on to, and then there's another box. It's just, why? Why wouldn't you use the same box? If you do use the same box, it doesn't time out the same. So then they've got a problem. You know, it's just too much. It's just, you know, tacky, you know. Say that one they had that time on, that it was a Britain's Got Talent, and there's somebody who came from America because they let them compete with from other countries. And you had like a vanishing motorcycle thing, and it was this huge thing that she brought with her. And it was really expensive. There's no way you could do this on spec. You have to arrange it with those people heavily because you had to bring it in the country or get it made here, which I don't think she would have done. It would probably be expensive, that. Probably a bit awkward. So she brought this bloody big thing with her to disappear a motorbike. And it was bloody obvious how it was done. But to me, I couldn't see what the point was. So she'd made a motorcycle disappear. How's that a big deal? We've all seen this stuff now. You know, she makes something big disappear. It's done it. It's been done. I'm sorry. It's been done to death. You know, just disappearing isn't enough. What's your drive? You know what I mean? Do you have a reason to do it? Is there something behind it? What you know what I mean? You're looking at it and it's just not enough. You know, and it's just way too much equipment to do it with as well. It wasn't necessary. There's a whole stage set. And, you know, whereby some of the other stuff is more interesting, you know. I mean, the first street magic stuff that came out, that was interesting, you know. Then everybody started doing it and it ceased to become interesting, I think. But, you know, I mean, don't be wrong, there's a lot of people out there just trying to do the same thing. We're trying to make art and entertain people, but we're trying to make art and, in my case, inform people. That's what we're really trying to do. You know, and that's not even always the best path, the easiest path. But it is the best path, I think. It's path for the person and for the people who they're entertaining and who they're performing for, you know. Because at the end of the day, we have to live with what we do, you know. Do you really want to go there and just realize you've just produced a load of shite, you know, that it's just light entertainment crap? You know, the crap all that comes out some of the time. You know, because at the end of the day, it's your money they're spending on it. If it's TV or stuff like this, and they put something shite on it, it's your money they're spending. They are really, you know, just, you know. I mean, on television, it makes no sense, illusions, because a pack of cards is as big as something a disappearing elephant. It's the same size. See, in real life, the different size, the elephant thing is really big and that's really small. And even if it's from a distance, it could still be quite a size. But on television or video, it's all the same size. You can only be a size that your screen is. Can't be any bigger than your screen. So the point of it is really gone largely. It's just expensive. It's just an overly expensive way of doing things. It really is, you know. But it's good to be offending people again. That's the good thing, because if you do what I do and they're not offended, the old back and front palmers aren't offended, you're probably doing something wrong, you know. I mean, in actual fact, I wouldn't say that. See, I don't assume that because someone's a magician, they don't know occultism. Some of them do. Some people know occultism well, you know, for most people, you know, to the level of a good practitioner. Obviously, most practitioners have jobs and things like this. It's not like me, where this is my job, but they have a good, decent knowledge. You know, they've read all the some of the decent books and stuff like this, and they've got. I mean, I'm not saying it's a lifetime study, but they haven't done too badly. Because in reality, people don't just sit down and read every occult book they can get a hold of. Some do, but they're rare. It just doesn't happen that way. People just don't do that and just read everything they can possibly read. They just don't. Okay. So in reality, if you read so many books, and I'd say you're a good practitioner, you know. But you know, that's the way it works, isn't it? You know, I mean, I actually use my system. I developed a system of magic, so what I know mostly about is mine. And that's a route that a lot of people, well, not a lot of people, but some of the best ones seem to take. We create a system. We create a system for ourselves, you know. I mean, a man that I communicate with online called Oliver Bowes, he also created his own system. Yeah, and he disappeared for a long time. He's probably going to come back on the scene again now. But his stuff's about like a type of meditation and stuff like that. It's very different from mine. It's all inwardly focused, you see. Yeah, but you know, but like I said, that I'll repeat that again for people who get critics from these idiots on social media. You know, like anyone gives a crap what these mediocre, useless fucking bastards care. You know, bit drippy, not really particularly intelligent. You know, the low hanging fruit, basically. You know, because basically it's quite easy to get yourself famous in a form of entertainment. As long as not for the public, but for the other entertainers, it's not that much. You know, if you're like a ventriloquist and you're a good ventriloquist, you know, I mean, the famous ventriloquist will have, because in other countries, we've got Paul Zerdin, he's really good. He's going to have good status within ventriloquism, but there'll be a lot of other ones that aren't really famous without a control outside of ventriloquism, you know, to the public, that are big within it. And all you've really got to do is put the time in. That's all it is. You just need to put the time in, and you know what I mean. I've wrote 634 books on occultism. You know, you get known by people, and I'm in a subject where things are blocked, and where you get blocked for publicity, and where other practitioners of magic are very, very aggressive against each other most of the time. So it's more difficult. But in reality, getting big within a subject is not hard. You just have to produce enough stuff. You make yourself simple. You write enough articles. You just do enough stuff. That's all you do. And eventually speaking, that's what happens. You know, it doesn't even need to take a load of time. You just have to do it. You know, so it's low hanging fruit. If you're competitive, you can do it even if you're not very good. You can still manage it. You know. But anyway, that's just the way it is. So I hope this has made you all feel a bit more better informed about things, a bit better, you know, because that's the thing, isn't it? Really, it's all about becoming more informed, you know. Yeah, because that's an interesting point. That's the thing, is the clever people are never against occultism. It's the ones that think they're clever. They're the ones that are really not. The clever ones never are, you know. I mean, you get academics and people like this. They're not really against these books on occultism. They don't care. They got their own books that they write and their own stuff to do. It doesn't offend them at all, because academics are clever people. It doesn't bother them. The ones that really aren't that bright, or maybe a little bit bright, are ones that think they're bright. They're the ones that are the arseholes, because they don't have the intelligence to be able to grasp the features of it. It's like mathematics. Mathematics, a lot of people find it hard because it's about how do I put this? It's not about apples and oranges. It's about concepts. You know, these equations represent things that it's a relationship. You know what I mean? Like in mathematics, you could take something and turn it into algebra and turn it into equations, and then you can work with it. Because once you can take something real and make it into an equation in mathematics, All of the things you know about equations can help you. You can draw graphs of things, you know, you can do all that. You can use algebra and manipulate things. You can work things out you'd never be able to work out any other way otherwise, because you're able to mathematicalize it, you know. And if you take the skills of engineering, you can go and you can take the things we do with materials and you can do diagrams and stuff like this. That's the thing though, once you get into math, there isn't anything you can't do, or very little, you know. You can do simulations with it, so it solves it itself. Stuff that you just wouldn't be able to do normally. And that is the basis of occultism. It's that type of thinking. Once you can get past that and get into the abstract thinking, then you can realize how occultism works. You know, there's a fuel that comes from somewhere. You know, that a lot of the time this stuff is about will, intent, and psychology. Occultism is a branch of psychology. That's what messes people up. Because people come in and say, aha, this was not a solid elephant. People think, nobody said it was a solid elephant. Nobody said that. I didn't say it was a solid elephant. And they'll do, aha, and that just proves it, because they don't understand it. It's a branch of psychology. Say to someone like me, something is real even if it doesn't have a body. See, I believe in the universal consciousness, which scientists are now believing that the universe is. They believe the universe has its own consciousness. Now, what this means to me is this, is that you can therefore have an entity whose intelligence is spread among parts of other people's brains in the universal consciousness. Now, that could manifest and be seen by people and not be physical, except, of course, the physical doesn't exist, which means there is a chance that it could appear physically, but probably not all the time. But like I said, it still would be real. I think, therefore I am. I can, in the words of René Descartes, I can imagine a world where the solid is not real, where what I call my body is not real. This isn't word for word, but the gist of what he said. But because I think about this means that my part of me that can think is real. Therefore, I think, therefore I am. They think, therefore they are. That's it. They think, therefore they are. If they can think and they can communicate like that, they obviously have thought processes. It doesn't matter if their brain is in their head, or if they even have a head, or whether it's spread amongst the heads of 100 people. It does not matter. It also means, it also explains why you can summon things and create new entities, because it's just about thought. You get enough people working on the same thing at the same time, you can create something that's real because it can think. Well, I'll give you something to think about now. And my name is S. Rob. I'm going to tell you the name of some of my web pages. I'll do that. Okay. So my main web page is www.srob.co.uk. That's www.srob.co.uk. And there's also on the offend the Spellcaster Psychic site at spellcaster-psychic. That's www.spellcaster-psychic.co.uk. And the Revamp Media one, www.revamp, that's like werewolf and a vampire combination, revampmedia.co.uk, and that one as well. And that's really useful. You can have a look at that website and you can buy stuff and stuff like that, you know, if you want to. And the stuff that you can read and look at, the stuff on the site's really old. It's like, the fact the stuff on that site, on the main site, is actually when I used to work as freelancer, because that's how I learned to write. I did a degree. I didn't really learn. I didn't do the creative writing courses. I did what I did. What I did is I worked as a freelancer and do articles for people. I was on the people churning out articles, not rewriting stuff. I didn't do that. I used to produce the articles from scratch, you know, and do the research and stuff like this. And that's how I started. And then I went from there to writing books. Anyway, my name's S. Rob. It's been great to talk to you. Bye.